This meme represents 1923 fans through the first 5 episodes of Season 2, and then this one is us during episodes 6 and 7. It was a lot, and you made it really clear that the show was imperfect. It's funny because our official poll asking you to grade this show came in somewhere around an A or a B, but most of the 500 or so comments were pretty critical. C at best, says at ehickey1202. Taylor's writing this season was terrible and lazy and in some respects formulated. At tasteofcountry.com, we made a list of 7 burning questions that the show never answered. Things like, why did Spencer blame Donald Whitfield for killing Alex? Is Elizabeth still pregnant? And who the heck is John Dutton's grandfather? We'll answer some of those during this video and certainly touch on the rest. There was also this bombshell.
Spencer never remarried, took the comfort of a widow, and made another boy. Refused to marry her.
That was just sort of lobbed right in our lap, wasn't it? Oh, by the way, Spencer got another girl pregnant too, but don't worry about it. Jeez, I have so many questions, and that is a problem. Understandably, a lot of people didn't like how it ended for Spencer and Alex, and yeah, we're going to talk about spoilers here. Quote, she should have kept her in Illinois and sent a damn letter, says the always pragmatic Leah Carr 6946. I mean, she at least should have taken the gas station lady's advice, right? Not everyone had an issue. Quote, I love the finale, shouts at Miss Daniel SJD. Every single moment of it, I screamed and laughed and cried. It all made sense and makes me want the next installment. How about you? As a season, how does this show compare to A, other television shows, and B, other shows from the Yellowstone franchise? For the most part, the Dutton Rules podcast team has held back opinions in part because we wanted to see how the whole season played out, and also in part because we never wanted to sound anything less than objective. This video is different. My co-host Adison Haager is here, as is Taste of Country's Sterling Whitaker, who has been our quiet wingman through this whole series. We all have unique perspectives, and I promise we'll have very different opinions. As always, this is a conversation, and while you're encouraged to join us in the comments section, we ask you to be respectful to the people that you disagree with. At the end of this video, Adison and I will read a few specific questions and comments sent to us via staff at tasteofcountry.com. Tap subscribe if you love talking Yellowstone, and I'll get out of the way for our full Grading 1923 Season 2 video with Adison Haager and Sterling Whitaker. Those who have listened to the podcast or seen these videos before know Adison and I host the Dutton Rules podcast. Sterling comes on at the end of each season typically to give his grade for each episode and to kind of explain his thoughts. And the benefit is here we get 3 pretty different perspectives, I think. None of us have, ranching experience, so we can't really weigh in from there. Well, maybe Adison knows something we don't.
For those who are just listening to the audio, I gave Billy a look like, don't put me in that box. Just kidding. I don't. I wish.
Adison is also our farmer once a wife correspondent, so maybe she is going to lean into that ranching.
Twist my arm. If anyone's listening, sign me up.
All right, we'll each give our grades as well as a little bit of an explanation for how we got there. And we're just talking Season 2 today, but if you want to expand into Season 1, of course, feel free. Sterling, you're up first. Take it away. Season 2, 1923. What says you?
What says I? I says I give Season 2 of 1923 an A- overall. I thought it was really, really strong. I enjoyed the second season, probably as much as the first overall for different reasons. And I thought they did a really good job bringing the stories home, although in some cases, maybe not in the most believable way, but it was a lot of good, compelling storytelling and a lot of good character development.
How would you kind of compare this show to just like a humdrum CBS Friday night procedural?
Significantly more cursing, for one thing. And,
a touch more sexual assault.
Yes, I would absolutely have to say that's so. Yeah. And as far as ups and downsides, the upside of this season for me was that it was different from season 1 because Spencer and Alex spent most of the year separated. And so it kind of gave you 2 different looks at what they're like together and what they'll go through to get back together, which I thought was interesting. I thought they really developed Cara and Jacob this season. That sweetness that's between them, it became more deeply rooted, and I think that brings a little bit of light to a show that has also a really dark side at times, so it balances it out, you know. But the downside, I mean, you're right. The thing about the assaults, I think, was almost universally disliked, and that's why this didn't get an A, got an A minus, because that's really unnecessary, and you could have shown the cruelty of that character without showing us all that.
Yeah. Did the slow pace of or the slow speed at which Alex and Spencer get to Montana, were you good with that? Did that bother you at all, or were you able to kind of remain patient?
I thought at least you got to see something new each week. It's not like it's not like they lingered on any one scenario too long. I was concerned, like a lot of people, going into the finale, how do you wrap this up? Well, that's when they just pulled the old switcheroo and you realize they're within like 10 feet of each other when you thought they were miles apart, And I thought that was a very clever way to resolve that.
Yeah, you make a pretty good point. Like even though it did take a long time, like they were always getting into something new, like Spencer and the mafia, Alex becoming a waitress for an episode and meeting new characters.
Right.
It wasn't just same old week to week, and a lot of different sets and scenes. You got to kind of see a whole portion of the America really in the 1920s, which was historically pretty accurate and really, I think, kind of interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, Adison, you're up next. How did you feel about season 2 of 1923?
I'm going to have to give it a B plus, which I think season 1, if I remember correctly, I think I gave it an A. And why I feel pretty confident about my B plus is really up until episode 7, I feel like it drug more than season 1 did. We said it before, Billy, on our podcast multiple times of like, just get us to Bozeman. Like, it just felt like a lot of the episodes were drawn out. And then I didn't love how episode 6 and 7, 6 is where we lose Jack. 7 is where I loved 7. And that's why I'm giving it the B plus. But it felt almost like, okay, up in the 1st through 5th episode, it's drawn out, where I was a little bit of a snooze fest. And then it felt almost as if Taylor Sheridan was like, oh, shoot, we have to get them there by episode 7. We have 2 more episodes. And then the 2 episodes felt rushed, where I feel we didn't really get, like we've talked about, Jack didn't get the homage that I feel like he deserved as a character. Some of the things just felt rushed, where it didn't feel like that was a need for those things to be rushed. So like we could have spaced things out. It wasn't like the 1st through 5th episodes were packed. But something that I did, kind of to Sterling's point, I don't think the Donald Whitfield's really graphic scenes were at all necessary. We've talked before of, okay, maybe 1 or 2 times, fine. But it got to a point where I just would really question Taylor's reasoning for that. Where it was just too much. If I'm having to fast forward through stuff, it's like, okay, and that's pretty much across the board. A lot of people have said just it's too much. But what I did really enjoy is the first season, we spend so much time with Alex and Spencer, and we see both of their personalities, and we see specific that Alex has a more fiery personality. She's going to stand up to Spencer. She's not someone who's just going to kind of lay by his feet and just say yes. But I really loved the individualism that we get to see because she's not with Spencer this season. I've said it once, I said it twice, I will say it so many times. I think Julia Schlafer did a phenomenal job in the acting role. And I felt so many variations of pride and then immense sorrow for her. And I just feel like the story arc with her specifically, and that's why I give it the plus, B plus side of things, is I did love how much depth and just grit that we got to see with her. Spencer, I do agree. It was cool to see like him running with the mafia. Like we entered into so many different aspects in the journey. Like it wasn't just him walking a dirt road the whole time. But I don't really feel like I left season 2 knowing like a ton about Spencer on a deep level. Like I left knowing so much about Alex, but Spencer, I'm like, yeah, you're hot. can kill a lot of people. Great.
Yeah. And you're
That's
troubled.
fair. Yeah.
He's troubled. He has PTSD. I guess that's about his 3 main takeaways.
Yeah. So that's me.
Funny.
Someone on YouTube did a tally. They tallied up all the kills, and it's like, 4 for this person, 6 for this person, 44 kills for Spencer. That's what they said. They added up like how many. I don't remember them all. Maybe they encountered some of those war scenes too, where he was just taking people down. But he is like the all-time Yellowstone franchise leader, if that's the case, in terms of how many. His body count is unbelievable. Is
that more than Tim's in 1883?
Oh, that's a good point. I didn't think about how many people Tim killed. James Dutton killed a lot of people. Yeah, but 44 is a lot of people.
Yeah, I'm like 44 is. We're double digits. We're high up there.
Yeah. Adison, I think you and I are in agreement. Was Julia Schlafer, like, if one person wins an acting award from this show, would we give it to Julia Schlafer?
Hands
Sterling,
down.
Or do you,
Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah. She really was the breakout star of this show, and I really hope she showed some depth, I think, in season 2. Like, season 1 was great. She was very good, but that whole other side to her that she brought to it in season 2, that was what made it for her.
Yes.
Well, and I think for her as well, it's like, okay, you have a Helen Mirren, you have a Harrison Ford, who you kind of know going into this what to expect. I mean, they are very much so well-seasoned actors, but with a Julia Schlafer, correct me if I'm wrong, this is her first major role, unless I'm missing something. And so it's like, you don't know what to expect. And I just feel like she was par for the course. She could hang with a Helen, with a Harrison. And I think that's why I really just gravitate towards, win an award, girl. You deserve it.
Well, I'm gonna talk for a bit and then give my letter grade. So I'm gonna flip the formula a little bit on you guys. I had said that after episode 5 or 6, I think it was, that if Donald Whitfield's perversions didn't sort of pay off in some sort of way, the show was going to lose a full letter grade for me. And they didn't pay off. Even if they had just left some of the more graphic events to our imagination, I think this show would have been much better for it. And as someone I'm a creative, I understand wanting to sort of reach to those edges of which was acceptable. And that tends to makes original art, I think in a lot of ways, Taylor Sheridan's been really successful doing that. But I think a creative kind of also needs to have a team of people willing to tell him that he's wrong. And Taylor either didn't have that team or he wasn't listening to him. And either one is a big problem, I think. But the biggest problem for me was writing. I thought the writing this season was a big problem. There just wasn't enough for all these characters to cover the 7 or 8 episodes. Jack and Elizabeth's love story, it really sort of floundered to the point. Even when he died, like Aunt Cara, she shoulder shrugged more or less when Jack died. The audience didn't really care, and it didn't really seem like the characters cared all that much either, relative to Alex, a woman she had never met, who she was weeping for.
Right.
That's true. I hadn't thought of that.
I'd feel so gypped as Darren
Some people
Mann.
were pretty upset about Aunt Cara's sort of stoic response to Jack's death. I didn't think she was that cold, but it wasn't as emotional as I thought it would be.
Right.
Once again, his entire death, we talked about that of the episode that we find out that he died. We were saying, oh my gosh, that means probably this next episode is going to be so grief-stricken.
Yeah.
We were just business to usual. Business as usual.
It wasn't. Yeah.
That was a bit
I don't even know
strange, for sure.
He needed a funeral scene. And I don't know if that was his funeral scene or Alex's funeral scene at the end, but maybe both.
I thought it was a double. I assumed it was a double funeral for the two.
Yeah, just because the way that Elizabeth was crying or like tearing up, I assumed it was a double.
Right.
I'm with Sterling in that the pace through the first 5 episodes, it was a little slow, but it didn't offend me. I was here for that long, slow squeeze for a great payoff. And I guess on the surface, we got a pretty good payoff. Spencer came in gun blazing. That was good. The good guys won. It was an epic tearjerker before the credits. The bad guy redeems himself. The family legacy is secure. All those sort of things. These are like the hallmarks of like a great show or a great movie. But here's the big thing. This is a show that asks us to notice the little things and all the little details. Elsa. Spencer has Elsa's knife. Spencer's mom and wife both died the same way. The battalion that Spencer refers to, the Lost Battalion, that's super real and interesting. Then they kind of ask us to overlook a lot of really big sort of details, a lot of big things. The way Spencer and Alex reunited was absurd. The train just happens to come by her car.
And she just happened to stop right by the train track. Let's not forget that.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
That's kind of a strong. Alex, I swear she was 4 months pregnant at Ellis Island, but then she was 6 months pregnant in Bozeman. I know 2 months didn't pass, unless she just spent forever in Chicago.
Right.
How did the wolf get in the house? Yeah,
That's a pretty good question. Yeah.
Those all kind of little things that Taylor Sheridan, he wrote 1883 in one season, and then I think he kind of had to hard pivot when they asked for a second season, so he invented 1923, and that was really good. The first season, I wonder if that same sort of thing happened, where they're like, "Hey, we want another season." He's like, "Oh, I don't really have another season in me, but I will stretch out 3 or 4 episodes to cover another 7 or 8 episodes, and give the people that." And you throw in the strike, and he's got all these other things. For all this, I'm going to give season 2 of 1923 a C. And I think it ended up being really middle of the pack among all the Yellowstone franchise shows. Acting was good. The writing was not. And that kind of met in the middle, I guess. Questions, comments, concerns? Reaction?
No, just
I'm sorry. No.
No, go for it, Sterling. I'm pondering life over here.
There's one storyline we haven't talked about that also didn't quite it resolved, but it didn't resolve in a way that I thought made a whole lot of sense, which was Teonna. Yeah.
Yes.
She just gets on a horse and randomly rides for California, and it leaves a lot of, unless they're going to have another show that focuses on her or something in the future, it leaves a big giant open question about how did she end up, out at the Broken Rock, or did she, or how does that happen?
I went back and did a little more research into what Thomas Rainwater actually says about his heritage. And he actually, this is a detail I had forgotten about. He was adopted. And throughout his childhood, he was told he was Mexican, but not necessarily that he was from Mexico. I had it in my head that he was raised in Mexico to believe he was Mexican, but that's not the case. He was adopted and told he was Mexican, and then he learns who his birth mother is. So there's obviously something goes wrong where somewhere along the way, either Teonna's child or has to give up a baby for some sort of reason. But her going to California doesn't necessarily disrupt what we know about Thomas Rainwater coming to the reservation. I liked that storyline okay. I would have liked a little bit more of a stronger conclusion on that, but I thought it was fine. I liked Mamie Fawcett a lot. I'd watch a show with her in it. She was cool.
Yeah, that was really cool. Maybe they're going to work that into another season of Lawmen or whatever that was, Bass Reeves. Maybe they'll give her a spinoff.
Oh, surely not. Sorry.
Lawman Mamie Fawcett.
Yeah.
It'd be better than Bass Reeves.
It sure would. Most things are, yeah.
No, I did like her character, though. And I did like that scene of Teonna and her when they find Teonna. And you can kind of tell that Mamie Fawcett is kind of grappling in her head of this girl's innocent, but she also killed. She's just she feels for her, and then at the same time she's trying to do her job, and it's kind of this. You can see just in the way that her facials. It's like she's definitely really conflicted internally, and yeah.
Yeah.
So people, if you want to watch our recap video for the finale, there's a great interview with that Adison had a chance to talk to Amina Nieves and Michelle Randolph, and Amina she's very engaging and super cool in that interview. Mm-hmm. Get a little glimpse of who the actor is behind the character, and she was really interesting previously too. So I'd like to see her pop up in another role or two as well in the Taylor Sheridan universe.
Yeah, she's good.
Very cool.
So this being sort of our final podcast for the season, a little bit of a bonus episode, but now for the video side, where Adison and I had previously already recorded a handful of fan questions and answers and comments right now. So this is we're going to cut to that. I'm not going to pretend it's live because I'm wearing a different T-shirt and people will notice sort of those sort of things. But we'll cut to that now, and you can enjoy this from the Dutton Rules podcast.
The first one is my favorite. It's from Matthew, who says, as a competitive shooter, I was impressed with Cara's aim. I call her Helen Headshot.
Helen Headshot.
I love it.
Yeah. I did a little peek because I was wondering if that gun she used was also Margaret Dutton's gun from 1883. Mm-hmm. Different gun. Not the same. Looks similar. Different gun. But, I mean, Cara took care of business elsewhere in the show. It wasn't surprising to me that she could shoot a gun. Her aim being that good was really, and her confidence was
impressive.
Amazing. But, man, she was just really a badass. Like, people think Beth came from Alex. I thought Beth came from Cara, which I know she didn't. But they seem to share a lot of personality traits.
I agree. The next one is from Shannon, who says, in today's Dutton Rules podcast, you mentioned that the Beth and Rip spinoff was still in the let's think about it phase, and that the Casey Dutton CBS spinoff was a go per Puck reporting. However, per the same Puck reporting that stated that Beth and Rip were in pre-production already. Additionally, it was reported by them back a few weeks ago that they were slated for summer filming and were actively looking for a new cast. Do you have information that contradicts that? Puck is pretty spot on with their Yellowstone reporting.
I do not, and this kind of goes to what we're speaking of. So the Beth and Rip is another series that is reported, and then Casey Dutton maybe getting a series on CBS. Like, Puck is reporting what they know and what they've heard, and they have been very good, but things change and have changed really quickly in this universe. So, no, I'm not contradicting Puck. I don't get inside information at all on like new shows. That's just not the world we live in. You're best to trust like Variety, Deadline, and Puck, who have been on top of it there. We're just in a lot of ways aggregating that information. I just know things change. That's why I'm skeptical about all of this. So the Beth and Rip show, we'll see. You know, when is it going to happen? I don't know. The Madison show seems to be firm. That's the only one. If I was to bet on one show, I'd bet on Madison, which is the Michelle Pfeiffer program, which I think is pretty far removed from the Yellowstone universe. It just kind of takes place in the same setting, I think.
The next one I have for us is from Kevin, who says, I appreciate the time and effort you put into your coverage of 1923, but I want to express my disappointment with the lack of critical discussion on the drastic decline in writing quality for season 2. While season 1 was a strong and compelling addition to the Yellowstone universe, this season has been riddled with filler, nonsensical storytelling, and questionable character decisions.
I don't disagree with Kevin's opinion. It's been a lesser season than season 1, but here's the fine line we sort of try to walk. Fans of the show listen to us and watch this, and I think fans overwhelmingly have a strong opinion of how it went. To that end, we did a poll of like grade the season finale, and like over 80% of the people gave it an A or a B grade. In the comment section, you know, maybe 200, 300 comments, the majority were pretty critical of it. It was the people who did not like the show that spoke up, far more than the ones who truly loved it. So I want to respect the majority opinion here because, you know, that's who's listening and watching. And I also just don't want to sound like a hater week after week. No one enjoys someone who's like just banging on a show.
Right.
I've thought this show was better than most shows on television. You know, I watch Blue Bloods is a show I've watched pretty much religiously since it started. That's a fine show. It's okay. It is what it is. It's not going to win any awards. This is much better than that. The writing has suffered at times throughout the season. And I'll be honest, when we get to the grading section, I also wanted to see the full season play out before I sort of gave a critical take.
We didn't know what was to come.
Right. Yeah. So, you know, I just don't want to be banging on a show week after week and then have to sort of backtrack as something great happens. I thought it was a good show. I'll get to my opinion next week, I think, but a lot of the criticism that people have expressed is merited, I think.
Two more for us. This next one is from Todd, who says, wonderful show on its own, but after hammering us through 3 effing shows about 7 generations, Sheridan just pissed on my coat and told me it was raining. Wow, that is quite the imagery and vivid picture you just painted, Todd. It's kind of a lot.
This is the family tree anger, and
Which I don't blame his frustration.
Our friend Gorilla in the Mist on YouTube, who was emailed, has kind of a similar frustration with sort of this turn of events. And there's ways that the 7 generations theory can still play out, but my gosh, is it ever murky? Like, why not just stick to the 7 generations? You put it out there. I don't know. A lot of questions.
And it's not as if he thinks, oh, people just won't remember, because it's such an integral part that, I told you.
Does he have no awareness of like what people are talking about with regards to his show? Is he just living in a bubble with blinders on where he's like, I bet you people won't notice this? It's like, then dude, you need people to tell you what people are noticing and talking about, because that's a big problem.
I told you I saw him recently from afar at an event I went to in Nashville, and there was so much. I'm like, if it was just appropriate to go over there and talk to him, and I have so many questions for this man, and he is finally in like eyesight. I'm like, let me at him.
I liked your takeaway. Like, what's he like? Short. Oh.
I said short king.
Short king.
Because I know Keith Urban tall, and I'm a little shorter than Keith Urban, and I'm 5'5".
Okay.
Yeah, you chew on that while I get to our last question. Our last question says, was that widow's last name Randall?
So this is Garrett Randall.
Oh.
Wondering if somehow... See, this is kind of... We encourage the craziest of conspiracy theories, so I'm not going to knock this particular one, because certainly we've had weirder theories through the years on this program, but I do not think that it's all going to circle back around and like the widow is a Randall and maybe somehow this baby is Garrett Randall.
That feels a little far-fetched.
I think the word you're looking for is incestual, which isn't quite. That's the word that comes to mind for me. Like, it feels like...
I was trying not to go there. This is not Alabama.
Yeah, it feels a little weird. Like, yeah. We won't get into that. But no, I think probably it's its own thing that might come around somehow in 1944. But maybe that's how we get to the 7 generations. Who knows?